like to welcome the Mayor and the First Lady of Framingham to our Temple Beth breakfast. Charlie Sisitsky, sworn in as Mayor in Framingham on January 1st, 2022. Is a seasoned and accomplished municipal executive with 40 years of public administration leadership experience. Framingham resident and homeowner since 1971, Charlie has an extensive record of public service in our community. While raising 4 children, all graduates of Framingham Public Schools, Charlie served on the Potter Road PTO as a youth basketball coach, on the town's finance committee, and as a town meeting member from Precinct 2. From 1998 till 2018, Charlie was an elected member of the Framingham Board of Selectmen, where he served multiple terms as chairman and also led the Utility Abatement Committee and the Traffic and Roadway Safety Committee, where he established and helped author the town-wide policy for traffic calming. I wonder if back then he ever thought he would be mayor and sitting here with us. After Framingham's adoption of its city charter, Charlie was elected city councilor from District 1 and served as chairman of the Planning and Zoning Subcommittee of the City Council. Volunteer roles in the community included serving as a member of the founding board of directors of Hoops and Homework, who will be our speaker in December, vice president of the Friends of the Callahan Senior Center, as the first chairman of the Fuller School Building Committee, and as an active supporter and volunteer with Community Connections, the Framingham History Center, and the Metro West Jewish Day School. Charlie has a BS in Civil Engineering from WPI and a master's degree in Community Planning and Area Development from the University of Rhode Island. After completing his studies, he became the youngest city planner in Massachusetts, serving as the planning director for Medford for 10 years. He then took over as planning director for the town of Natick, where he eventually became the town's district director of public works, a position he held for over 20 years. Please give a warm Brotherhood welcome to Mayor Charlie Sisitsky.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you to the Brotherhood. Good morning, Rabbi. And thank you for inviting me here today. It's so nice to be back where I recognize so many faces that I haven't seen in a while. It's good to see everybody. Acknowledge Kate Donahue, our newest state representative, representing the portion of Framingham. John Stefanini, our city councilor. Jen Moshe from the school committee. Who did I leave out? I saw Dave Mignani. Where's Senator Mignani? Hi, Dave. Good morning. Thanks for coming. It's been an interesting 11 months, believe me. As Steve said, I was the Director of Public Works for the town of Natick for 20 years. I retired about 13 years ago. And I thought that was it. I thought I'd take it easy and do my political work in Framingham as a city councilor or selectman at the time. Never thought that I would run for mayor and be elected mayor. And on January 3rd of this year, I'd get up after 13 years of being retired and go to work. Man, what a change. And it's been very intense since then. It's almost like a 7-day-a-week job. All the events that Robin and I go to, and meeting people and shaking hands and having our pictures taken. It's been unbelievable. But I really want to let you know that I love the job, and I really, really like what I do. And I look forward to getting up every day and going to work and being your mayor. So I thought I'd give you a few ideas of what I do during the day and some of the things we've been working on. When you take over in January, that's halfway through the fiscal year. So there's a lot of work to do to get ready for the next fiscal year, including preparing the budget and getting other things ready. And as taking over as mayor, there were a lot of vacancies. I needed to hire a human resources director. I needed to hire a public works director. I needed to hire a planning director. I needed a chief financial officer. All these jobs that I needed to fill before I could do any work. and we rushed around and got those positions filled. I got some very, very talented people to fill those positions. And we worked very diligently to get the budget prepared. One of the things I campaigned on was to restore civility within the city government. I swore to develop a good working relationship with the city council. Being on the first council, I knew how important that was. We had to overcome, and we're still trying to overcome the feelings about being a city and being a town. There's still a lot of divisions about that. Some people still miss the old town form of government, and we're dealing with that. We're trying to be as open and transparent as we can with the new government, but yet be pretty efficient. And I think we've been fairly successful at that. But I was able to develop a good relationship with the city council. I included them in preparing the budget, and I had an open door policy, and I made it very clear to the council that anytime they wanted to meet with me, all they had to do was pick up the phone, set up an appointment, and we'd sit down and just have some informal talks in my office. And to their credit, every one of them took advantage of that. And I've met with all the city councilors at least once throughout the past 11 months. We've talked about issues that they have in their district and what they'd like to see for the city. And we try to work together to work that into the priorities for the town. Early on, Senator Spilka set up a meeting, an all-day meeting with me at the State House, and she, Dennis Giavetti is, I'm sorry, Dennis, I didn't see you there. I meant to introduce you. I'm former City Council Chair Dennis Giavetti, who represents Senator Spilka. And I was just about to say how Senator Spilka put together a whole day event in her office at the State House and invited in all the different cabinet secretaries to meet with me one by one throughout the day, and got a chance to meet with them, shared our cell phone numbers, which is kind of intimate, but we did that, and I got to meet them, they got to meet me, and they learned a lot about Framingham that they didn't know before. And that got us off to a good start with having opportunities and connections at the state level. We've met with the governor several times. Lieutenant Governor has been out here several times. She's been very friendly to the administration here, and it's all been good. Some of the things I campaigned on included working to get a new school on the south side. The first step would be to purchase some land on the south side for that school. I'm happy to say that we're moving along. We've done the engineering for a site. We're in the process of getting an appraisal done for it. And we hope to be able to start negotiating with the owners of that property in a couple of months. Big topic of discussion during the campaign that had been going on in the city and town for a long time was the acquisition of the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail. That's been on everybody's do list, and I'm happy to say that as soon as I became mayor, my staff and I reached out to CSX, who owns the right-of-way, and we've been able to negotiate an agreement to buy it. Papers are in transit for us to sign, and I expect to have the signed documents by the end of this year. So we'll finally own that rail trail. There's also, Senator Spilka made sure that money was set aside to honor the late Chris Walsh with the Chris Walsh Trail around Farm Pond, and we're working diligently on that to get that designed and built. We've had some cleanup projects, environmental cleanup projects, most notably the Mary Dennison Playground down on the south side. That was a piece of land given to the city many years ago by the Denison Manufacturing Company, but at the time, no one realized that they had used it as a dump. And many number of years ago, when the city went to do some work there, they discovered contamination. And by doing a lot of research, we realized that that was a heavily contaminated site. So we've been working with DEP, the Department of Environmental Protection, with the state for a cleanup plan. And we finally reached that agreement recently. We're about to start working on the actual cleanup of the plan. And we've been able, because we now know the extent that it's going to be cleaned up, we can negotiate cost sharing with Avery Dennison. And we're in the process of negotiating that. The Eversource is working on the cleanup of an old gas. I forgot what it's called. They used to make gas down on 350 Irving Street. They would burn coal and create gas, and a major contamination of that land. So Eversource is starting to clean that up. Senator Spilka again got us over $12 million for the cleanup of the General Chemical Company, and the state is running that program, and they're about to start phase 2 of cleaning that up. One of the things that I really set out to do early on was to meet with different agencies, different social service agencies, and different providers of services in the city, as well as the business community. And every week, every month now, the Framingham Business Association meets, and I attend their meetings. I bring staff members with me, and we talk about issues in the city, talk about financial issues and the budgets and different things that we're working on, and get their input and let them know we're there to help them and to listen to them. I met with the Chamber of Commerce, the Regional Chamber of Commerce. I've had Zoom meetings with just about every social service agency in the city. Early on, I had a breakfast meeting with the pastor of the New Wave Brazilian church on the south side, and he brought in approximately 40 pastors from different Brazilian churches in the city. And I never knew there were that many Brazilian churches in the city, but they're all sizes, and we have a huge population of Brazilians living in the city. And we reached out to them and found out what their problems are. They have some very specific problems and how we can help them, and we've established a working relationship with that group. One of the things that I'm kind of proud of, and this Robin gets credit for this, is that early on I asked her what we could do as a quick fix for something to improve the quality of life in Framingham. And she said, do something with the farmers market. It's a disaster. And if any of you were familiar with the farmers market, it really was. It wasn't run by the city. It was run privately. There was no organization to who would come every week as a vendor. Nobody knew who was running it, and it was just not good. We couldn't compete with other communities. We couldn't provide any services for our residents. So I brought in Bill Sell, who was a local resident, and he's an event planner. And he's done a lot of different events throughout the country. And we sat down and figured out how we could make the farmers market better. And two of the things that we did immediately was increase the hours, because they weren't convenient hours. And we got rid of the fees. The vendors were being charged fees, and they couldn't make any money by coming here because all the money that they were making by selling their goods went to fees. So we got rid of that. Bill developed an extensive list of vendors and farms and different organizations to come to the farmers market. And if any of you are paying attention this summer, you see how successful it's been. Every week we're getting more and more people. We got food trucks, we got entertainment, and And eventually it became a real family event on Thursday afternoons. And we intend to expand that next year. Going to be putting out picnic tables and get more vendors and just continue what we've been doing. So thank Robin for that. And by the way, she's been a terrific partner the whole time that I've been there. I couldn't do it without her support. Other things that we're working on, that just so you know before you read it in the paper, I'm going to give Karen Spilka credit again for this. One of her top priorities was to bring a new regional justice center to Framingham. As you may know, we have an old dilapidated district court on Concord Street, which is basically falling apart. And there's a very strong need for a new courthouse, but Karen's vision is to increase the size of it to include a juvenile court, include a housing court, a veterans court, and a number of other district courts throughout the region. And the state agency that deals with public buildings is called DCAM, and Division of Capital Asset Management, I think it stands for. They were looking for a site for this new courthouse, and they approached me early on in my administration, and we pointed them toward the old Danforth Museum building. As you know, that's in tough shape. We had to evict all the tenants that were in there, including Danforth Museum a number of years ago. And we pointed them toward that direction. That's right outside of downtown. It's a fantastic location. And they're looking at it, and they focused on that as the new location for this new courthouse. And they're planning on spending over $100 million to either fix that building up or tear it down and build a new building. And that's going to be such an economic shot in the arm for downtown Framingham. One problem that comes with that is that in all the other cities and towns where they build courthouses, they don't build parking to go along with it. They rely on the local community to provide the parking. And we can't do that with the current situation in downtown Framingham because we're maxed out with parking. So one of the things that we're looking at is to build a new parking garage between City Hall and the police station. But we'll build it big enough to accommodate the needs of the courthouse as well as the needs of the city. And we figure by doing that, it'll enhance our opportunity to get state and federal money to build that parking garage. So we're working on that. We hope to see some movement on that in the near future. Another thing that I was aware of as a selectman and as a city councilor was the need to improve the way our emergency services dispatch emergency vehicles. Police and fire have their separate operations. Police department does it obviously out of the police station, and the fire department does it out of the fire station on Route 9. They're old facilities, they have outdated equipment, and we have trouble getting dispatchers, especially in the police department where we have civilian dispatchers and we can't find people. Just like every other business is having trouble finding people, we're having trouble hiring dispatchers. So when I first became mayor, I sat down with the police chief and fire chief and I said, how serious are you about wanting to do joint dispatch? And they said, we're very serious. We need to improve the way we dispatch emergency calls. And then the more we looked into it, the more we realized that there were financing opportunities through the state if we did regional dispatch. And we met with the 911 state organization, who you might not realize this, but on every one of your cell phone bills, there's a little bit of money taken out every month that goes for 911 support, statewide support. They have a ton of money. They don't rely on the legislature for appropriation. That money is there every year. And they use that to support communities that want to enter into agreements, regional agreements for joint dispatch. So we met with them, and we're going to be partnering with Sudbury, Wayland, and Holliston. And Framingham is going to be the host community, and we're going to do a joint dispatch center. We've got a state is already underway with studies. They've been inventorying all the equipment that each community has, and it's just unbelievable all the money that they're going to be putting into this new system. Upgrade all our equipment, upgrade all the equipment in the vehicles, set up a whole range of dispatch facilities, and it's going to be fantastic. And as host community, it's our responsibility to provide a site for it. And we've found a site in an office building right next to City Hall. It's a 4-story office building, 4,000 square feet per floor. We're going to vote. As a matter of fact, we're going to the City Council next week to get permission to buy it. But we're going to vote one full floor to the joint dispatch, and then we'll be able to use the rest of the space in the building as swing space, so we can move departments around from out of City Hall, so we can modernize City Hall. And we plan on using the money from the, I can't remember the name of the program, but this money will be available to do historic preservation. And since City Hall is a historic building, we'll have that money available to do renovation of City Hall. And because we'll be buying this office building next door to City Hall, we'll have space to move offices around while we do the renovation. So, what else going on? If that wasn't enough, we're working with the different developers in the city to help them figure out a way to use some of their vacant office space to repurpose it. We had a meeting a couple weeks ago with some of the larger developers in the city, just brainstorming what we could do, how we could help them, maybe through changes in zoning, to help them out and work with them. We've been meeting with large businesses. We've met with Jack Savvy a couple of times. They're desperate to increase their footprint downtown, and they're looking for space. They're also looking for housing to be developed for employees. They can't get employees because there's no place for employees to live. Housing is so expensive that people are commuting from great distances to come to work in Framingham, and it puts a burden on families and makes it very difficult. So we're looking at ways to improve the housing stock and provide housing affordability, and it's a problem. I'm not sure if you're going to ask me about what's going on downtown, but downtown continues to be an issue with the shopkeepers and homeowners, the business people down there, because we have a lot of people that live down there, that live in social service agency buildings, and they're just hanging out downtown and creating problems with customers who want to shop there and the shopkeepers, and we're trying to deal with that. It's not unique to Framingham. It's a problem every large city encounters, and we are putting together different task force to work with that. And we've got some of the deputy chiefs of the police force that are spearheading this, and we're working on it. And I intend to meet with the new governor, lieutenant governor, who was a former mayor of Salem, who has experience with this type of situation. And we're going to try and brainstorm new ways of dealing with this problem. So I'm hopeful that we'll be successful in doing that. I don't know what else I can tell you. I made some notes. Some of the things that some of the fun things I do, by the way, I got to throw out the first pitch out of the Worcester last year at the Woo Sox game, and we hung out in Charles Steinberg's private box, and I think he was one of your speakers here a while back. Terrific guy. He didn't know I was Jewish until we started talking about Passover during that, and so we had a very interesting conversation. But that was a lot of fun. I only bounced the ball once, getting it to home plate, and I guess I did so well they could invite me back again next year. So that was fun. Robin and I get to go to a lot of different events. We go to different schools. We read to the kids. We've been to plays at the high school, at the middle school, even at Barbarian. We've been to some of the school plays there. We really enjoy it. The kids love to see the mayor and the first lady. We've toured the charter school, and just everybody wants to see the mayor. So we try to oblige everybody. So it's like a 7-day-a-week job, but we enjoy every minute of it. Like seeing people, like to talk to people wherever we go. Every time I talk to somebody, I learn something new. So I never avoid having a conversation. And it's just, I'm really enjoying the job and looking forward to 3 more years of this term and then 4 more years after that. So keep going. So why don't I take a break here, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
I don't have a question, but I just want to say thank you to you and to Robin for your boundless energy and dedication to the city. I see progress over every raised manhole cover. I avoid people moan and groan, but in my mind, it's progress. So I just wanted to say thank you because it is endless work.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming, Mr. Mayor. I'm very happy with the job you're doing.
Yes.
I didn't know all the other things that you're doing, so it's really great to hear. I've got really a couple of questions. One is on a personal level, the other two are not. How do we get the rest of Pleasant Street repaved? I happen to live in Pleasant Street, and years ago they did the part up the Belknap, and then after that they did the part from Temple Street after, I think it is. So I live in that section in between, and we'd like to get that paved and perhaps even the sidewalk, because a lot of people use Pleasant Street to walk. In between the overgrown area after Brophy School going down, it's pretty difficult. On the other side, really 2 questions. Is there anything that can be done about the train in downtown? Because it makes it very difficult to want to go through downtown to get anywhere at certain hours. And the other part is, how do we entice some good quality restaurants to come to Framingham?
Robin and I talk about that all the time. We want to go out to eat. We go to other communities, like go to Waltham and Moody Street and other cities, Worcester we go out to, and we always say, why can't we get a decent restaurant in Framingham? And we have a couple of good ones, not bad, but what we really need in Worcester and in Framingham is a diner. We have you want to go out and get a greasy hamburger at 3 in the morning, there's no place to go. It's funny you mention the train, because the train has always been an issue. That train crossing has been a nightmare forever. And when the new planning director started back in February or March, one of the things he was starting to do was to clean out his office. And he came running up to my office a couple weeks after that, and he found this plan. It was 100 years old. And it was a plan for depressing the railroad tracks down. The planning board had prepared it. And so those thoughts go back at least 100 years, and we still haven't been able to do it. And, every time they talk about increasing the train traffic and provide more service to Worcester and to Springfield, we cringe because we know every one of those trains is going to go through downtown Framingham. And it's not, and the traffic is a nightmare. And we've done what we can in terms of upgrading the traffic lights and the signals and everything, but at a cost, an estimated cost of $250–300 million, and a disruption it would cost. I don't see that happening. I can't promise you that. With regard to Pleasant Street, just get on the list like everybody else in the city. Everybody wants to get their street paved or taken care of, and it's impossible. We can't pave every street. I know parts of Pleasant Street are owned by the state, so some of those sections that were done may have been done by the state. I know the crossings, the sidewalk, the crosswalk, handicap accessibility crosswalks were done by the state, I believe. And we just pick away at it. We look at the worst streets and the heaviest traffic, and we're picking away at it. As we get money available, we do what we can, and there just isn't anywhere near enough money to pave the streets that we want to do. But we're trying to keep them passable and do what we can. So if any of you have some real serious problems, let us know and we can get to them. But routine repaving, it's very difficult. I can't promise you that it'll get done in our lifetime. But good try.
Other questions? I just have a quick question. You mentioned about the school in the south, and I know we bonded a lot of money to fix up another school recently. And so is that the approach you're thinking of taking to finance the new school, or what is the finance plan for the new school?
It's a good question. As you know, we completely rebuilt Fulham Middle School, and that was just about $100 million cost. The state ended up paying about half of it, and the other half was done through debt exclusion, which you see on your tax bill every year for maybe the next 20 years. Yeah, and it costs money. Those things cost money, and the school that they'd like to build on the south side would not only be an elementary school, but be an early education center for pre-K education, because we need that. One of the problems is that most of the schools that we have are in very tough shape and don't meet current codes. And the school we're looking to build on the south side would replace Hemingway School. And for a number of reasons, we're not able to put a lot of money into that to upgrade it to current codes. There's issues with the site because there's a lot of wetlands there. There's issues with the existing building and the infrastructure. So the only solution to Hemingway and some of the other schools is to build a new school. And the school committee has looked at all over the city, and it's determined that the best location is down on the south side on Bethany Road near the Bethany Health Center. And one of the problems we have in Framingham is that we have a large majority of our students living on the south side of the city, but most of the schools are on the north side. And that's what's causing us to have such a busing problem, because these poor kids spend hours every day on the buses coming up from the south side to go to school up here, and then at the end of the day getting back on the bus and going home. And people say, well, why don't we do neighborhood schools? But if you don't have a school in your neighborhood, you can't do neighborhood schools. And that's one of the problems that we have in Framingham, is the imbalance between where the kids are and where the schools are. And some of the studies that they've done for this Bethany site show that if we were to build a school down there for 650, 700 kids, almost every one of the kids that would go there could walk. There's so many kids in the neighborhoods around this new location that we would be able to do away with a lot of the busing. And that's a big problem we have right now. I know Jen on the school committee they talk about it all the time, about dealing with the contract with the school company, the school bus company, and it's a real problem. We've threatened to sue them, we've sent them letters, and they're doing everything they can to get drivers, but they're still short drivers, and there's a lot of kids that are not able to use the bus to get back and forth to school. And that has a cascading effect because parents then drive the kids to school, and that's why you see such traffic problems around the schools every day. So it's a compounding problem, and we'll be able to solve part of that solution by building a new school on the south side. As I think I might have mentioned, we're working on at least purchasing the site for it. But getting back to your question, how are we going to fund it? Don't know. I hesitate to have to ask the taxpayers to come up with another debt exclusion to pay for another $100 million school. And hopefully we'll find other sources of funding for it. But right now, that's the only option we have. So we'll see what happens. Stay tuned.
I don't live in your city, but a suggestion, you might look at what the Commonwealth did with the Prudential Center and Copley Place and everything, where they built up above the railroad tracks. So if you're talking about a new municipal courthouse and different structures for your city, you may talk to your architects and say, where can we put this where the train now goes under and the roads in the area can come up above? So that may be a solution to the redevelopment of your downtown near the train.
Interesting comment. We're not short of land to build the facilities we're talking about because we have plenty of sites that can be repurposed. The problem is separating the trains from the traffic, and it's either put the trains underground or put the trains overhead. And either way, it's very, very expensive. If you put the trains overhead, you have to go miles in either direction.
The buildings over the train.
That doesn't solve
You
the
don't
traffic.
need that. That doesn't do anything for the traffic. Okay.
Get back to the schools. Is there any logic in redeveloping or utilizing the former Marion High School for the Framingham School Department?
We looked at that. The school department looked at it as soon as it became available. That was one of the places they looked at. And that building needs a lot of work inside. It needs new electrical. It needs new windows. It needs new elevators. It needs everything. The only good part about the building is the structure itself is good and strong. But there's not enough land there either to meet the requirements for a new school. That's been sold, and the outfit that has bought it has been looking at different ideas for redeveloping it, and they're looking at subsidized housing. They're looking at office space. It's got zoning issues there, and they don't really know what they're going to do with it yet. But there's been people looking at it to repurpose it, but it would never qualify as a school under their current codes.
Traffic is an issue here in Framingham. An example of it is traffic going westbound where Whole Foods is in Prospect Street. Also Temple and Route 9 if you want to get to work and go eastbound. Can you comment on that? Any strategy about controlling traffic here in Framingham?
Actually, when I was, I spent as a selectman, I was on the traffic and planning committee, and as a city councilor, that's all we heard about. That's the number one complaint that we get from people all over town is speeding in the neighborhood, traffic through the neighborhoods. Route 9 obviously is a major artery for east-west traffic. It's controlled by the state, but it serves so many different uses. It serves all the abutting uses, and it serves as a through corridor for east-west traffic as an alternative to the turnpike. And you have so many intersections and so many signal lights there that it's impossible to navigate during business hours. And I don't see any long-term solutions to that. I remember even, I don't think it was the Dukakis administration, maybe the Patrick administration. They came out and they looked at it and they couldn't figure out. They had the best traffic engineering minds in the state look at it, and they really couldn't come up with any solutions either. One of the things we did do to give some relief to the neighborhoods, though, is develop this policy on traffic calming, and came up with ways to slow down traffic. And some people love the speed bumps, other people hate them, but they do their job. And we've got speed bumps installed on Winch Street, Edmonds Road, and on Grove Street recently. And I can't tell you how many compliments we've been getting from people that live along that end of Grove Street, thanking us for slowing down the traffic. So we do what we can with the resources we have, but there's no easy answers to some of these problems. Gene, I'm sorry.
I was wondering if you could speak to what's going on with the property on Edmonds Road where they started building, I think, a school, and then it was all abandoned and all the trees were knocked down, and it's really sad what happened.
That was supposed to be a school for autistic kids, and there were some problems with the transfer of the property from the owner to the nonprofit school, and there were zoning issues there, and there were financing issues. And from what I've heard, that land has gone back to the original owner. The idea for the school is gone, and there's been some proposals for rezoning that to change the zoning to make it the same as the zoning on the other side of Edge Road, to allow mixed-use development. And the planning board and the city council are both having hearings in December on that rezoning. And until they take action on it, we don't know what's going to happen with that. But all I can predict is at some point, you have 29 acres of vacant land there, something's going to happen. We have no idea what will happen, but something's bound to happen.
There's a school on Leland Street, elementary school. They went from Woodrow Wilson School to Harmony Grove. Is there a reason why the name was changed?
Yes, of course there was. It was up the school committees that made that decision, but people were unhappy with the fact that it was named after President Wilson and his history, and they felt that it was no longer appropriate to have a school named after that type of person with that background, and so they had a contest and coming up with a new name. And because of the history in Framingham of Harmony Grove, that name was picked, and so the school name was changed to Harmony Grove.
I realize why you have to do this school, Bethany. It's a good place, but are you taking it to walking? Are you doing it 2 miles as the crow flies, or 1 mile as the crow flies? Because I know the state is 2 miles. 2 miles for a little kid walking to school is a lot and a little hard. The other thing is you have to make sure there are sidewalks for all the walking routes that those kids are going to take. I do not want kids walking there on the street, especially in the wintertime. So I hope that that's going to be taken into account.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Russ Donnelly. I've lived in Framingham, I guess, since '86. Hard for me to exactly remember. My wife wants to caution me to not be too cranky. Once recently I was exploring Framingham on my bike, and I was pleased to bike past the new Fuller Middle School. They now have solar canopies on much of their parking lot, as well as a battery storage system, as well as 6 or 8 level 2 EV charging spots. So I want to compliment whoever did that, okay? And I would like that urge people that when they build the new elementary school, they try to build it in a rational fashion. That is to say, build it with solar on the roof, build it not heated by fossil fuels, and I would also suggest that instead of paying for it by taxing stuff we want, which is to say employment, we pay for it by taxing stuff we don't want, like pollution.
That wasn't cranky at all. That was good. You point out some good things that we are doing. We have the canopies, the solar canopies at Fuller. We have solar canopies at Brophy School. McCarthy School, I believe, has solar panels, and a few other schools have the solar panels. And we're trying to be as green as we can. When we built the new Fuller School, we designed in a lot of green items in there, and we got extra points for reimbursement for being such a green school. So we're very cognizant of it. We have a sustainability coordinator that works for the city, and we're working on this new plan with Eversource, the geothermal plan. I don't know if you've heard about it, but they've got a experimental plan around the Concord Street Firehouse and the public housing development right behind the firehouse, where we're going to do some geothermal heating and cooling tests. And it'll be a 3-year program to see whether it's successful or not. And it could be the future for getting rid of our dependence on fossil fuels. So we're working very closely with Eversource on that. We're very happy to be one of the few areas that they've chosen to undertake this test, and we'll see how it goes. But wherever we can, as I mentioned earlier, I think this new parking lot we're talking about between City Hall and the police station, we expect to put solar panels on the roof of that building. We expect to put EV charging stations in there. We already have a few EV charging stations down by the skate park on Dudley Road. And as funds become available and the demand rises, we will continue to install charging stations and do other things to lower our dependence on fossil fuels. Good question. Thank you for mentioning that.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for coming here and answering our questions. My question is, can you give me an update on the Knobscott Shopping Center? I'm in my starter house 42 years later. My guardian was, as you know, used to live there on Eden, I believe.
That's correct. I did.
And that was such an eyesore for so many years. Now I do see progress there. I see actually they just paved Thursday and Friday that Edgehill Water Street thing. Can you give me an update what's going to be going there? Because I know there was controversy of what retail housing was supposed to be 4 floors, 3 floors. Do we know what's eventually going to be there?
Yeah, that's already been permitted. That project's been permitted. It's going to be about 150 units of housing with some retail in it on the first floor facing Water Street. I believe he's already, if he hasn't already, pulled his permits to start construction. I believe the construction is going to start in the spring. And we're going to see that building come out of the ground all next summer and be ready in a couple of years after that. But that's what the new zoning was that I made reference to allow this new mixed-use zoning there. And as you know, the first part of that project was to move the chapel to make room for the CVS on the corner. The chapel is complete, and I believe the developer of the housing has purchased the chapel, so he's going to be working on getting a tenant for that as well. And he's been working closely with the city on easements and other things to coordinate with the construction in the intersection. So we're ready to go.
My question is, assumption is that the trade trail is going to go through. What is the plan to protect the privacy of the abutters? For example, the current abandoned railroad track is a direct path to our house. Is there a plan to put up shrubbery or fences, or how do we protect people coming from property.
You're talking about the rail trail?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gotta be designed. The first step was to get the right of way, because that's been kicking around for so long. We were afraid that the railroad would get tired of waiting for the city to do something and decide not to sell it. So that was first priority, was to take care of purchasing the rail trail. And now we have to go out and survey it and do some environmental studies. But when we get to the point of designing it, that's when we're going to get input from the abutters and get everybody's opinion on what they want to see there. And the goal is obviously to protect the privacy of abutters and keep people on the rail trail and not interfere with the use of your property. So, but that's a few years off. That's not going to happen for a while.
Thank you again on behalf of the administration here at Temple Beth Am. Thank you for coming in and speaking to us. And we live up on the west side of town, northwest, and I'm just curious if you know what's going on at the park and ride area on Route 9 across from the office park.
That's going to be the new salt shed for the state DOT. If you remember, we've had a big problem with flooding at the intersection of Route 9 and 126 where the old salt shed was. And they needed that land to put in areas to store the stormwater when it rains so it doesn't flood Route 9. So they tore down the salt shed and they needed a place to put it. So it's going up there. I don't know if it's going to take up all the site, but most of the site is going to be a new salt shed for the State Highway Department.
I wanted to offer a solution to a problem, namely the depression of the railroad tracks. The problem has always been money, as you say, it's $200 or $300 million. If we should suddenly find a pot of gold with $300 million, I'm sure you'd be glad to spend it on that. For years now, the commuters on the Mass Turnpike have been the major source of funding for the Big Dig. The Big Dig primarily services people who commute from the north and south in Boston. About 10% of the users of the Big Dig come from the west, but almost all the funding that is raised from local residents comes from us in the west. We talked about it once before, I think, with Karen Soka. And she said the biggest problem was that they can't put tolls on the north and south approaches to the Big Dig because the toll booths would back up traffic immensely. Well, they found a solution for that on the turnpike. They no longer have toll booths. They just photograph everybody's car if they don't have a transceiver. Using that technology, it's now possible to put tolls on the Big Dig itself. And if they were to find that as a source of revenue to pay for the Big Dig, it would free up the Mass Turnpike tolls in the Metro West to pay for our railroad depression. And I wonder if anybody has ever considered linking all these projects together. You might want to talk to Senator Stilka about that.
So that's a good point, and it's more a political issue than it is a financial issue, and whether people have the appetite for establishing new tolls and making those changes. You know how difficult it is to get the legislation to do anything. So when it comes to institute, you're right, the technology is there. Technology keeps improving every day, but it's a political solution as well. And even if we were to raise that money, then there's people who will say, we have other priorities. We have to provide additional housing. We have to do other things for social service agencies. And not everybody thinks that solving traffic problems is a top priority, that there's other priorities if the money was to come out of the sky. So there's a lot of issues that you have to deal with when you work with that. And it's not just a matter of throwing money at the solution. If we were to try to put the tracks underground or the road below the tracks, you have to think about all the impacts surrounding that area, how many properties we'd have to take by eminent domain and how many people we'd have to put out of business just to have the right-of-way available to do that, because that takes up a lot of land. You have to go out quite a distance, so you have the proper grades for either the trains or for the trucks that would have to go under. there's a lot to consider beyond just getting a check for $300 million to do it. But people, as I said earlier, we've been talking about it for over 100 years in this community. We'll probably be talking about it 100 years from now.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for coming out today and being with us. We've heard a lot about what keeps other people in the city up at night and what they see as the major issues that they'd like to see fixed in the city. I'm curious, coming in, being here as mayor nearly a year, what is it that keeps you up at night? What's something that you thought would be a lot easier and it's been more challenging than you thought?
Rabbi, that's a great question. You know, Robin and I talk about it all the time, what keeps us up at night, and it's a lot of things, but I'm not surprised by what I inherited, because of all my years of experience in municipal government. Coming into this job, I thought I knew what to expect, but it's so much more intense, and you're responsible for so much more than just as a city councilor or a member of the Board of Selectmen. That, we've got a $360 million budget we're responsible for. We got over 6,000 employees that we're responsible for. We got all kinds of services we provide, public safety services, public works services, picking up your trash, plowing your street, trying to fix your roads, and then all the other departments that we have to run. And, that keeps me up at night worrying about getting things done and making sure that everything works and we don't have any screw-ups, because anytime something doesn't work right, it affects a lot of people. And I feel personally responsible for that. So I worry about that. Luckily, I have great people working for me directly, plus all the other city employees who are very, very dedicated employees. I can't tell you how much they care about the city and how hard they work every day to provide services to the residents. So we're lucky. And as long as we can keep everything working and everybody doing their job, I might get some sleep one of these days.
Mayor, thank you very much.